Hi, y'all. Hope everyone had a good lunch. Don't sleep on me, you guys. yeah. So I want to thank Dash for this opportunity, and thank you all for being here. I'm so honored to share this space with you all. So this is the part I need to introduce my name. It's 20 letters long, almost the entire alphabet. And when Maren was introducing my name, I'm sure many of y'all were like, what? Am I right? yeah. So every conversation where I meet somebody generally goes by, how do you say your name? Or sometimes even, do you go by something else? And even in India, where I grew up, people pause and ask, wait, like the Bollywood movie? Yes, I share my name with the classic Bollywood blockbuster from the 60s. And usually this follows a smile or a chuckle because most people just can't believe it. It's not a very common name, even in India. And let's not even talk about Starbucks, right? There were so many more instances, you guys, but this is the only 2 pictures I could dig up. And I'm sure there's some of you who relate to me here. So when Dash reached out to me to present here, I knew I had to stand up here and teach you all my name. And I've had nightmares about this part of the talk, so I hope each one of you will come along with me. I'm gonna break this down phonetically for all of you, and y'all will repeat it back to me, okay? So, are y'all ready for this? Oh, yeah, thank you. So let's do this, okay? This first one, it's the sound of when inspiration hits. And I'll go first, then you go. Ah. Yeah. This next one, you need to roll that R a little bit, okay? And imagine you're a tiger. So let's try this together. Repeat after me. Ra. Ra. Yeah. This next one's just a little bit tricky. You have to kind of think that the H is silent. And so after me, da. Da. Yeah, you guys are great. This last one is someone decided to feed your art to an AI model without compensating you or seeking your permission. This should be your reaction. After me, nah. Nah. Yeah. So amazing. You guys are doing great. We're just going to string this all together. Aradhana. Yeah, you got it. First try, guys. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you all. Now you all know how to say my name. Nobody asked me, right? So for the longest time, I let people mispronounce my name, gesture for me, even ignore me. This moment here, taking the time to teach you all my name, was a tiny act of rebellion to reclaim my name. Thank you. Rebellion has been a big part of my life, and that's what I'll be talking to you all about today. The word rebellion breaks down to re, which means again, and bellum, which means war. When you hear the word rebellion, it generally evokes a negative feeling, usually aggressive, drastic, and images of uprisings come to mind. And sometimes that's what it looks like. But the rebellion I'm talking to you all about today isn't about violence or chaos. It's about rising again to be. It's about choosing ourselves again, our creativity, our joy. And rebellion has been a through line of my career and personal life. And it's given me the tools to face challenges and empower creativity. I'm going to be sharing my story with you all today, and that'll require me to be a bit vulnerable, and so do bear with me there. I believe rebellion can be a wonderful tool that we can use to harness our own creativity and growth. And my hope is that I can show you ways to use rebellion in your career or maybe even life. And before I dive in, I'm going to take moments where I'll ask you all to pause and do an activity. So have something handy to write with, pen, paper. And if you don't have that, you're free to pull up your phone and use it to type something down. I'll give you all a moment to do that. So I'm going to start my story by taking you all back to my earliest recollection of rebellion. Rebellion often starts at quite a young age, and you'll know if you've ever been around a toddler like this one. This video is me telling my son not to do something when he was 1.
No touching. No, don't do it.
No, he's adorable. He's 5 now, but these rebellious moments are not that cute anymore. And the teenage years are when rebellion really amplifies. And thankfully, I have some years before I have to face that, as a parent. Anyway, back to my story. It's important to know that I grew up in a city called Kolkata in India, which goes by many names, unlike me. It's a bustling city, but it does have its pockets of calm. And it's the home to many worshipers of goddess Kali. And believe it or not, that's where the band Rolling Stones got their logo inspiration from. And probably most of you have heard of it as the home of Mother Teresa. For the most part, my teenage life was much like anywhere else, where hormones are going crazy, parents don't know what to do with you. But there were some smaller details, like I wasn't allowed to talk to boys other than those in my family. For very, very valid safety reasons, I wasn't allowed to go anywhere by myself unless accompanied by an adult. The only expectation from me after I graduated from college was that I get married, have children, and support my husband. My earliest memory of rebellion takes me back to my teenage years. I remember my grandmother constantly telling me that I should grow my hair out really long so that when the day of my wedding arrived, I could put it up in this high bun, the perfect Indian bride. And she would go on and on about it. It would infuriate me to no end. But one fine day, she was at it again, and I had had enough. So I walked into a salon and chopped off my hair. And I went about most of my teenage life looking like this awkward teenager. These are the only grainy photos that I could find. And probably some of y'all in this audience are wondering, did I ever put my hair up in a bun on my wedding day? I sure did. I just use extensions. Looking back now as an adult and as a parent, this feels kind of silly, this incident. But it was my way of creative self-expression. Because rebellion often starts small, often personal, and often against invisible cultural expectations. So I want you all to close your eyes right now. I want you all to take a deep breath in and breathe out. And I want you all to think of a moment when you rebelled. Maybe it's those early teenage years, or maybe you were a young adult, or maybe it's now. Did you get a terrible haircut? bangs after a bad breakup, or something else. And when you're ready, feel free to open your eyes and make a note in that notebook or phone of yours. And I'll just let you guys take a moment here to do that. Great. So I want you all to hold on to this memory at the back of your head for the rest of this talk. And since I'm talking to a room full of artists, and probably those who work with art, I know each one of you is going to relate to this next story very well. Because rebellion often looks for ways to find its own voice or style. My mom has always been a great inspiration to me. She is an incredible painter. She has a green thumb. She can even make murals out of moss and these adorable terrariums. And she's always busy creating with her hands. I got my rebellious nature from her. As a young girl, she used to have to hide painting from her father because she wasn't allowed to. She is the one who encouraged me to train in traditional Indian paintings with this incredible artist in my hometown of Kolkata. The OCD side of me loved all the fine details and the beautiful embroidery. And my choice of medium was watercolors, as you can see up on stage. I started very young, and I very much enjoyed it. I loved to draw and paint. But there were some days I would feel bored and uninspired because much of Indian paintings kind of have the same themes from one subject to the other. And as a child, I loved cartoons. But it was in middle school when I stumbled upon this book in my school library by Preston Blair on how to draw for animation. It sparked my interest in it. It was my aha moment where it was like, I love to draw and I love cartoons and I can just mush those all together and maybe make a living off of it. So I got curious about new drawing styles beyond what was available within my reach and the resources that were being presented to me. I soon realized that I needed to understand human anatomy and observe and learn to capture life because much of animation is about doing just that. So I'd spend hours just staring and studying my hand and drawing it in different poses. I would go out and look for different art books to explore different styles and mediums, and my work evolved into looking much more like this. This helped me tremendously in my career. It taught me to not just accept what was handed, to stay curious, as curiosity is a quiet form of rebellion. So I want you all to think of a way that you can stay curious on a current project. Feel free to answer that and write it down in your notebook or phone if that answer comes to you right away. But I'll give you some prompts, like for those of you who are still studying or starting out, what more is there to learn on a specific assignment? Or how could you do it differently? Or for those of you working jobs already, what more is there to learn or stay curious on a current project brief? Or what new kinds of projects are you curious about working on? So I'll give you all a moment to think through that and write it down. Great. It seems like most of you are done, so I'm going to move along. So I'm going to fast forward to high school, and at this point, I had really caught the animation bug, and I hadn't even animated a single frame until then. But I somehow felt it in my bones. It was the path that I needed to reach out for. That one day, I'd work at Disney or Pixar. At that time, there were not that many resources in India to go to an educational institute. There wasn't much of like online resources like YouTube or School of Motion or any of that. So I soon realized that I had to look at colleges out of the country in order to pursue this. And as I shared my hopes and dreams about going abroad for college, I was often met with some form of a no. While I had a few people who supported my dreams, but I was also surrounded by many who had specific expectations of me as a young woman, and specifically about women not being educated more than men. My parents were also very hard to convince at first. Understandably, I was proposing to move 1,000,000 miles away from them and also follow a path that no woman in my family had ever taken. They had never stepped even outside the same city to go study somewhere. But they soon realized that this wasn't just a phase and that I was actually quite passionate about it. So they struck a deal. They said if you got good grades in your finals in high school and if you got a scholarship, that they would be open to a conversation. I took this to heart and I worked my butt off. So I would study all day, and at night I would work on my college portfolio, essay, and applications. But thankfully, all that hard work paid off, and I won a scholarship. And with the will of my parents and my grandfather, I read SCAD in Savannah, Georgia. And I graduated with a BFA in animation. I need to address this video right here, guys. Preparing this slide, I realized I had no photos of me in front of a computer actually working and animating. So, at Montgomery Hall, how many of you are from SCAD here? Yeah. So thank you, AI, for just this. This experience of reaching out taught me that creativity and rebellion meet the moment you choose to follow your inner calling over external expectations. In this creative industry, or really any career, we hear a lot of no's. Y'all are all familiar with this, rejections from internships or job opportunities. And resilience is what turns those no's into fuel. It's that inner voice that says, I'm going to prove I can do this. You have to keep trying until you find a yes amongst the millions of no's. I worked for several years at various startups, working on games before landing an interview at a dream job at Disney. I went through all the rounds of interviews, but after the final stage, I didn't make it. I was devastated. I soon spiraled into a pretty dark place of self-doubt. I had questions of, was I good enough? What was I doing all this for? What was I trying to prove? But I had come too far and fought too hard for this career to give up. And it was my father's words that resonated with me, to take life in stride and to not let a no stop you. I reminded myself that I had persevered through all those no's back in India, that I could keep going. And after several months, I had the chance to interview again at Disney for another job. And this time, I got that job. This experience taught me that rejection doesn't shrink who you are, but shapes what you become. Creativity needs resilience, and rebellion fuels it. Every time you keep creating after a no, you're quietly refusing to let the world define your worth. So I want you all to recall a moment when you heard a no, but you did it anyway. Or you received a rejection, but you didn't give up. Or if you heard a no recently, how could you let that fuel you to keep going? So I'm going to give you all just a moment to do that. Great. Most of you feel like you're done. That's wonderful. So you can always come back to this thought later if you need more time to think through it. So as I was saying, I got that dream job, and I thought I had made it. And for a while, it really felt like I had. I loved it. I was living the dream, and at that time, I was mostly working with 3D animation tools, and Autodesk Maya was my jam. Yeah. Don't miss it. Yeah. I got to work with some very talented people, and I was often in rooms with some of the biggest names in the industry, including Donald Duck. I loved it so much, and as classic as our industry, it's where I met the love of my life, my husband, and the father of my son and fur baby, Camilo. He's also the other half of TheLittleLabs, and he's sitting right here. I promised I won't do it, but can you stand, Camilo? Yeah. He is very much a part of the DNA of TheLittleLabs as me. We were inseparable. I had to share this photo in theme with Dash's opening titles, because this is us in our car loaded up with furniture from IKEA for our first home together. Camilo is an incredible 2D illustrator and designer, and I'm not just saying it because I'm biased. He would illustrate, and it would inspire me to animate his illustrations. And at the time, I was working with Maya, so I had to teach myself After Effects in order to do so. It was my introduction into motion design. Up until then, I was working in the games industry, purely focused on character animation. So we would collaborate after hours and produce work like you're seeing up on screen. And we wanted to share that with the world, and we opened an Instagram and Dribble account and called ourselves TheLittleLabs. The name was intentional. At the time, we were working at Disney, and we didn't have much of a choice on the projects we were assigned to, and we often didn't have the creative control on what we were working on. We were craving for a place that we could be ourselves. Be little, have fun, and just explore. Eventually, our tiny apartment in Los Angeles just wasn't big enough for our creative endeavors, so we rented a studio space in Burbank, and that became our playground to explore, which kind of ties into the labs portion of the name. We even tried to lathe and do some woodworking just to try to see how we could make something with our hands. Eventually, we even hosted art gallery shows. Since we had the space, we were like, why not? We invited our fellow artists and friends to participate and just have a fun event celebrating and uplifting each other. Camilo had already owned a business before this, but for me, these moments became a learning experience. We were having so much fun that our day job was not feeling fun anymore. And Camilo was the brave one to take that initial step, take that leap, and quit and start freelancing. But for me, walking away from a dream job to build something uncertain was hard. I thought I'd be holding on to those mouse ears forever. It felt really scary. And the warning sign for me was when I kept hitting that snooze button on the alarm before going to work, or I just couldn't wait to go home, power up After Effects, and start animating. I knew something was amiss. I needed to do something differently, take that leap off the cliff, trust my heart so I could move forward. I finally got the courage to give in my notice and hang up those mouse ears. This started our freelance journey together as an artist duo. And as the projects grew larger and larger, it eventually and very organically evolved into the TheLittleLabs studio. This life moment was really a life lesson, that it's okay for dreams to change, and sometimes the boldest creative move is walking away from what once felt right to make space for what wants to emerge. It could be as simple as pivoting to a new direction or on a storyboard or a project concept, or a career change that means moving forward and not letting the old hold you back. When we started off as an artist duo, we made this unspoken decision that we don't have to follow any rule book, not even in business. As the TheLittleLabs evolved into a studio, there are a lot of opinions about how a studio should be, what success should look like. But the guiding light for us was always, does it feel fun? Is it meaningful, and does it make us feel alive? Much of the spirit comes from Camilo. His path has always been that of a creative rebel, with his own rebellious haircuts, growing up in Colombia and moving to the US at a really young age, starting his own t-shirt printing company at the age of 20, working at the New York Times, Disney, HBO Max, and then walking away from them, releasing vinyl toys, showcasing his work at art shows and even Pictoplasma. His career has been one of constant exploration. The TheLittleLabs became a blend of both our worlds, a studio shaped not by what the industry expected, but what excited us. So I want to take a moment here and share some of the work our studio has done up until now and play our latest studio reel, which is made possible by the very talented people we get to collaborate with each day. Thank you all. Thank you. I have another activity coming up, but before we dive into that, I want to highlight that following fun is a quiet rebellion and one of the most sustainable paths to keeping the creative spark alive. When you turn into that inner joy and create from a place that is wholehearted, no matter what the outcome, it aligns with you. And it is truly fulfilling. Your work mirrors that inner feeling. So this one is really important because I want each one of you to think of what is something that you wanted to do for a really long time that is fun. And it can or cannot be related to your career and professional goals, but that truly makes you feel whole when you do it. If you had one free day, no rules, no judgment, no pressure, what is it that you would do? And if the answer is clear, why have you not done it yet? Great. We will move on, but I promise this will all make sense at the end of the presentation. And I know it sounds like I'm just up here preaching, just have fun, but I do want to clarify and acknowledge that sometimes the reality is we can always strive to have fun, but that doesn't mean it's always going to be. Every creative path has its hard moments. We need to pay bills, survive, life happens. And for me, one of the most challenging shifts came with parenthood. Becoming a mother brought me full circle, back to the societal expectations that I thought I had broken free from. It forced me to rebel in a different way, more quietly, more internally. And I had to remind myself again and again, I can be creative on my own terms. Motherhood has many unexpected expectations about how to show up at home, at work, and to even the world. I had to reinvent myself, as many parents do, my life structure and my schedule. And the truth is, I could no longer just have endless fun and work 12 plus hours like I used to, and realize no one ever should really do that. It forced me to reprioritize and figure out a new schedule and way to do things and really get creative with my time. I learned to delegate and focus on growing the team at the studio and realized I didn't have to do it all at the same time. It taught me how rebellion doesn't always look loud. It can be quiet defiance, and that I can continue to create in my own way even when culture or society says to pause, or perhaps that I may not be relevant anymore. I learned to say no to expectations and opportunities that didn't fit into my new way of life. And for a while, I felt alone in this part of the journey, trying to navigate motherhood, creativity, and leadership all at once. The industry didn't always reflect what I was going through, and I struggled to see where I fit in. But then I found Mothers of MoGraph, who started by Jenny Davis and Casey Smith. Casey couldn't be here today, but Jenny is right up here. And if you haven't already, make sure you say hi to her. I consider them both fellow rebels, and they're just incredible humans. This moment, something shifted inside of me. Through the community and the incredible moms that I get to meet in the industry who lift each other up every single day, quietly and loudly, rebelling against unrealistic expectations, I found the strength to keep going. I realized I wasn't alone, and that in itself was powerful. For a long time, rebellion was something external, but motherhood taught me that quiet rebellion is still rebellion. And the hardest kind is often against yourself. That's truly when creative freedom begins. My career started off as an artist, and I never really expected to be a business owner, a leader, to be making decisions not only about work, but about people, giving direction and setting a vision. Through this journey, I had a lot of internal resistance and fear around growth, leadership, visibility, and ambition. But I decided to invest in myself and learn the business side of things and become comfortable with being uncomfortable. After years of running the studio, a new dream emerged, and launching it meant facing something bigger than external risk. It was facing my own hesitation. I had to rebel against a part of me that wanted to wait for permission or wait until I was validated or perfectly ready. Instead, we just did it. It's like last year, we quietly launched our own kids' IP called Cloudy and Friends, a whimsical world of lovable characters with a mission to spread joy. It's a dream Camilo and I had been building for years, and with the help of our team at TheLittleLabs, we had the courage to set it free. It felt exhilarating to just be out there, to have it just be out there, and we continue to figure it out, build it every day. We have some exciting ideas in the works, and we can't wait to share it with the world when it's ready. Starting Cloudy and Friends reminds me that true rebellion is often questioning your own limits. It's outgrowing the version of yourself that no longer resonates and be able to expand your creativity. So I want you all to think of what unspoken rules you have been following without realizing it. And I'm going to give you some examples to help you think through this. For example, rest had to be earned and not taken freely. Or that you have to draw like one of the Disney animators in order to animate. I'll do that when or until something is perfect. I can't do something without doing something else first. I'll give you all a moment to think through that. Amazing. And if nothing came out right now, that's totally okay. You can come back to it later. If you're like me, sometimes the answers show up later, usually in the shower. The last question was hard because the truth is, when you start to question the rules you've been following, whether you wrote it down or not, we're already stepping into something uncertain. And walking into the unknown is always scary. That's what it feels like right now for most of us in the industry. Today, AI is everywhere, and it's not going anywhere. And it's showing up in our day-to-day lives, sooner than I personally and naively imagined. At first, I was very scared, but that changed as I opened myself up to exploring it each day and facing the moments instead of fearing them. I truly believe we can all come out of this to the other side if we keep reaching and creating, even when the path is not clear. Turn every no into creative fuel. Let go of what we have outgrown and be open to change. Follow what feels joyful. Create on our own terms and question our own limits. At least for me, all these little rebellions gives me the resilience to face what the future holds. And for myself, maybe the biggest fear of all, public speaking. Thank you. For me, the scariest thing wasn't starting the studio or launching a project. It was this, right here, using my voice, being seen. The past few months, my emotions of giving this talk have gone from despair to self-assurance. And standing here, doing this presentation, sharing my story out loud, this is my biggest act of rebellion. Because the most radical rebellion is to face your fear and show up as yourself. Each exercise we did today was meant to be a mirror. Throughout this time, I invited you to pause and reflect, not on my story, but your own voice, to question yourself and have the courage to follow where they lead. Each one of us in this room is on this journey of rebellion. I'm certain I'm not unique in this journey. Sometimes we just forget that teenager and child inside of us that was fearless, passionate, and full of energy, and had that terrible haircut. So I want to close by encouraging you all to rebel against systems that box you in, rebel against expectations the world hands you, and rebel against the limitations that don't fit. But most of all, rebel against the voice that says, you're not ready or you can't, as that's where real growth happens and creativity can blossom. I want to take this moment to thank my entire team at TheLittleLabs that have helped me with the amazing design and animations in this presentation. I would not have been able to do it without them. And I certainly would not be up here without their hard work and support through the years. And thank you all for being here, listening to my story, messy, evolving, and unfinished. I hope you leave today ready to rebel, gently or loudly, in your own way. Because the most powerful rebellion is becoming fully, unapologetically yourself. Thank you. Thank you.